You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk is sponsored by addclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com to sign up for free webinars today. Well, hello and welcome back to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I am your co-host, Lynne Edris, and I'm a productivity coach and an ADHD coach who helps overwhelmed professionals reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time, more energy, and even more money for what they love most. And as many of you know, I'm a woman with ADHD myself, so I have been where so many of you guys are, where so many of my clients are, living that life of, constant chaos and overwhelm and underperformance to a life of much more success and fulfillment than I ever dreamed was possible for many years of my life. And I know you can share the same success yourself. You can learn more about me and what I do and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And when you sign up on my website or text the keyword HACK, HACK, to 444999, I'll send you my 7 foolproof productivity hacks to help you add hours of free time to your weeks by investing just a few smart minutes each day. So the topic du jour is overwhelm. It's one that's been sort of the center of my universe lately when it comes to my client work and even when it comes to my own work, really. And this is a big one for so many of us. It's something of an epidemic, I often say, and I really don't think that's being overly dramatic. I hear the word overwhelm from my clients and on consultations several times every single day in and day out. And it really is among the top 3 reasons people come to my business for help. Number 3, again, it's overwhelm. Number 2 is procrastination. And the most common complaint, the most common problem people are looking to resolve when they come to me for help is feeling like they're not living up to their potential. And I think it's clear that if you think of those 3, reasons people come to me most frequently, overwhelm, procrastination, and unmet potential, they're sort of like 3 sides to the same triangle. They're intertwined, right? If you're overwhelmed, you're probably procrastinating. Something probably isn't getting the attention it should. And if you're overwhelmed and you're not following through, it really is impossible for you to reach your potential. And around and around and around it goes, right? With overwhelm, procrastination, and unmet potential. But really, if you think about the world today and you think about our lives, it really is no wonder that so many of us struggle with overwhelm, especially when ADHD is part of the equation, right? Information and just, stuff comes at us from all different directions just about every single moment of our days. Email, text messages, IMs and PMs and podcasts and, the internet are all constantly vying for our attention and our focus. And there's social media, and there's Alexa and Siri and Outlook reminders and, all of the other things that come into play and all of the other things that are vying for our attention in this day and age, right? So all of these things are completely and constantly bombarding our brains and competing for our attention. And we also have, all of the things that we need to do and that we need to accomplish every day. And all of those things are competing for our attention. So it's no wonder that we get overwhelmed from time to time. There was a Nobel Prize winning psychologist named Herbert Simon who said, information consumes the attention of its recipients. Hence, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. So he said, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention. So if you think about the world today, that's really true. But he actually said that in 1971. So if you think about it, I was 6 in 1971. We had 3 channels, at best on our TV set with the rabbit ear antennas, 1 landline telephone in our house for, a family of 6, and, maybe an 8-track tape player on the family stereo at that time. So this was pre-mobile phone and pre-internet. And look at where we are now. So it's no wonder so many of us are overwhelmed in general, right? I read an article in Inc. magazine recently that said that there are more than 269 billion with a B, billion email messages sent every day. That's more than 3 million each second. And I know if you're anything like me, you feel like too many of them are landing in your inbox. So we are all bombarded with information, 24/7, what to pay attention to next, what's more important, what's more urgent, competing priorities and competing stimuli are coming at us from all directions. And when you add ADD or ADHD to the equation, overwhelm really takes on a whole new meaning and comes at a whole new level. So the overload we feel is exacerbated by our brain wiring because of our difficulty with attention regulation and because of our executive function challenges. Of course, we know ADHD isn't really a deficit of attention, right? Sometimes we have too much attention, like when we hyperfocus on something. So our deficit is really in our ability to regulate our attention, what to pay attention to in the moment, what to tune out, and resisting distractions are all things we struggle with when we have ADHD. That's our deficit. And I think that this deficit is one of the things that makes us much more prone to overwhelm at a much greater level and in a much more debilitating way than the rest of the population. So it's important to pay attention to how your brain wiring is getting in the way and how your brain wiring is contributing to your overwhelm. But really, if you think about it, I often say that the root of overwhelm is static or noise. There's a sheer volume issue for most of us. I think everyone in the world, maybe it's just my perspective, but everyone in the world in this day and age, and I'm not sure that's a whole lot different than in past decades, but absolutely much more in this day and age. We all have way more to do than can reasonably be accomplished in any given day. That really is, it's a fact. It's a fact of life. It's a fact of modern society. But when you have ADHD, that sheer volume shuts you down even more when you have a lack of clarity, when you have that static, when you have that noise that I believe is the root of overwhelm. So volume is an issue always for all of us. But if you have clarity of direction and you have volume, your tendency to be overwhelmed is going to be less because you're going to have a clear path to take. So if the root of overwhelm is static or noise, the antidote for overwhelm is clarity. And having that clarity in a practical way on a day in and day out basis is what really kind of is at the root of what I do with my clients when we're working on the productivity piece of ADHD coaching. So when we're working on time management and task management and calendar management and those kinds of things, project management, keeping goals and bigger picture projects moving forward. The basis of all of that is having clarity for yourself every single day. I did a podcast a while back, gosh, I couldn't even tell you when it was, where I talked about, having a plan for each day, having a productivity GPS, or having a productivity compass for yourself every single day. When you know what it is that you intend to do, when you know what it is that is on your calendar, and you have clarity around your commitments, and you have clarity around what actions you need to take and in what order and really at what time, a lot of the overwhelm goes away because you have the clarity of focus and the clarity of action you need to eliminate overwhelm. So looking at your systems and your tools from a practical perspective, what is it that you're doing that's working with your calendar? Do you have really solid habits in place for staying on top of your calendar, for making sure everything goes in it, for making sure that you have it with you at all times to capture what you need to capture when you need to capture it, for making sure that you're reviewing it on a very, very regular and consistent basis to make sure you're in front of things and you know what's coming so that you can plan accordingly. What are you doing in terms of keeping track of your to-dos that aren't things that belong in your calendar, things that aren't time-specific appointments or commitments? How do you keep track of those things? How do you make sure that you have a place to capture those things, that you have a place to put those things or park those things so that you're going to come back around to those things and make sure they're taken care of? Do you have the behaviors in place for reviewing that on a regular basis and pulling the things out of there that you need to keep moving? Do you have mechanisms in place for making sure that your bigger projects or the things that are, sort of bigger picture things keep moving forward? So a lot of the clarity that we can create for ourselves, we can do in practical ways with good systems and tools for time management and task management and calendar management. So the reason I focus on those things in my business is that they're practical tools that can help improve your life in bigger picture ways, like quality of life ways, not just your satisfaction that you get for crossing a bunch of crap off some list every single day, but really the fact that it keeps the important things on your radar, it keeps the important things moving forward, right? Making sure that the everyday stuff gets done, but really so that you can feel that sense of completion and the ability to let go when it's time to let go. So in the bigger picture, it's what it creates space for you to have more of in your life, if that makes sense. So when you're focused on improving the practical stuff, the time management, the task management, the calendar management, habits, routines, those kinds of productivity type things, really what we're focused on is what would making all of that better for yourself give you more of? Is it going to give you more time and more energy for, your family? Is it going to give you more time and more energy to grow a business? Is it going to give you more time and more energy to take care of yourself or pursue some creative outlets that are really important to you, to make connections and to deepen the connections that you have and the relationships that you have, just to have more downtime, right? Really, whatever that is going to be very individual for you, but that's an important thing to clue into because that's what makes it easier to keep the motivation and keep the momentum going that you need to create, systems and tools and behaviors and habits for doing these kinds of things consistently, for maintaining those systems and those tools, a calendar and some sort of a task management system and some sort of a system for habits and rhythms and routines and making sure your big picture projects continue to be moved forward. So these things are all important in and of themselves, but really what they are is a vehicle to something else. And if you can focus on those things being a vehicle to something else because they eliminate overwhelm and they give you, clarity of focus to take action and clarity of focus on what's more important to you and the ability to focus on those things too, it's going to be a lot easier for you to keep those things going. So I hope that gives you something to think about. So start to pay attention to when you feel overwhelmed, what your signs are that you're overwhelmed. And that's going to be a little bit different for each one of you. I often encourage my clients to pay attention to their external signs. I call them external indicators. What do you do when you're overwhelmed? Do you escape into social media? Do you disappear into a game? Do you, veg out into, YouTube videos or Netflix? Or is there some sort of behavior that you exhibit when you're overwhelmed? And pay attention to that behavior and pay attention to what it is that you're either avoiding or that you're, trying to escape when you're finding yourself doing that sort of behavior. And then you can look at, how can I create clarity around whatever that thing is that has me overwhelmed? And you can put yourself in a more proactive sort of detached problem-solving perspective rather than just I ought to be doing this, I should be doing this, but I feel so overwhelmed, or I just don't feel like I can right now. And if you can put yourself in that proactive problem-solving perspective and detach from it a little bit, step back from it a little bit, when you notice those behaviors or you notice those things that are signs that you're overwhelmed, then you can go into problem-solving mode and you can see, what's falling apart. Am I leaning on my calendar well? Do I have good behaviors and good habits? Am I really using that calendar consistently? What needs to be tightened up with my habits and my routines? What do I need to improve with my task management? Do I have good systems in place for that? Do I have good habits in place for that? Where is the breakdown in the systems and the strategies that I need to have the clarity of focus and clarity of action that's going to help me stay out of overwhelm? I hope that gives you something to think about. Again, if you're overwhelmed right now, you're not alone. It's something I hear several times each day and something I have to keep an eye out for myself as well. I know exactly what my external indicators are that I'm overwhelmed. I know that I tend to clench my jaw. I know that my shoulders get tight. I know that I will find myself doing what I call, picking the low-hanging fruit. I will tend to do productive things that aren't a priority right now, productive things that really aren't the things that I ought to be working on when I'm avoiding something because I'm overwhelmed. So start to pay attention to your own cues and your own indicators and see what you can do to give yourself that clarity of focus and clarity of action you need to avoid overwhelm and to break yourself out of it when you find yourself in there. I hope I've given you something good to think about. Again, you can visit us in the ADHD Support Talk Radio Facebook group if you have questions or comments or something that you want to share. really hearing about how other people break themselves out of overwhelm, or hearing about other people's indicators or what they're discovering about themselves can really help other people overcome some of the same challenges you have as well. So I hope you'll join us in the Facebook group. But as always, thank you for your attention. Again, you're listening to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm Coach Lynne Edris, and I appreciate you. Until next time, take care.